Hey, everybody. Good afternoon, John. Nice to see you here from Texas. Um, Sorry, I'm about 30 seconds to a minute late here. I was just sorting out some audio issues. Hopefully, everything sounds okay. Um, Still just trying to get the hang of the microphone setup and everything, making sure that it sounds okay. I've been using this setup for a while now, but it just takes that week over week iteration, getting a little bit better each time. So one thing I wanted to mention here, I had a fun time with fellow smart home creator George Langabeer last night. Saw him in Chicago, which was really fun. You can see more of that on Instagram stories and threads. It was just fun to meet up with a fellow smart home creator and show him a little bit of Chicago. He's been here plenty of times before, so wasn't too new to him, but just fun to meet up with George. So thanks for taking the time, and good afternoon. Good to see you here in the chat, George, from not that far away at this time. So, and hey, Brian, nice to see you here. Vlogfield, nice to see you. Carl, good afternoon from Florida. I bet that's a lot warmer. We've been getting some really nice weather here in the Chicago area, speaking of, although it's supposed to, I think, get hot next week. So summer is not done with us yet. But I have some exciting news to announce of something I'm doing. So this is, let's see here. Go ahead and change. All right. So I am selling merch again, and this will be ongoing from now on. You should, if you don't see it already, start to show up on some of my YouTube videos. I know there's some approval process going on through YouTube to make sure it works. I'm using Cotton Bureau, and so their integration with YouTube is not as officially public as some other integrations with YouTube. But the shirts say you can get the classic W logo shirt like I'm wearing today. And that's still for sale. But then I also created this new design. You've reached the family tech support. Please hold. So it comes in t-shirts, sweatshirts, all kinds of different configurations, long sleeve, short sleeve, different colors. Of course, you can get it in like some of my favorite greens, although I think they've been sold out of for a little bit, the forest green standard tee. Yeah, but you can get it in like the tri-blend black, which is a nice, cool color to get it in. But nice way to remind your friends and family who you live with, or just what you do for them by being their tech support. And could be kind of fun. Although, if that's not really your thing, not really what you do, you're lucky enough to have someone else in your family doing the tech support, or you just don't have to deal with all that with the family. Got the W logo tee as well, which you can get in short and long sleeve, and then also the black or the forest green. And then there's also sort of the standard and heavyweight cuts and sizes, depending on what your preferences are there. I really like some of Cotton Bureau's, like this kind of t-shirt where it's the standard tee with some of these different tri-blend fabrics. It's a really nice fabric and it looks good. If it's a good fit for you. And then there are options there. I actually spent a bunch of time trying to get this all set up, and I'll post on social media about this probably tomorrow, but this is kind of the first public announcement. I kind of cold launched it on my website earlier this week, but so you guys in the live stream are the first to hear about the merch, but I tried a bunch of different providers. I previously have used Cotton Bureau, and that's what actually this shirt I have on right now is actually from my previous time I sold merch with Cotton Bureau like 2 years ago. And it's held up pretty well. I mean, it's a little bit fading on the logo, but this same design is available now. Although I think they're sold out of this forest green color right now. But yeah, it's I had trouble with other providers finding something that would be the configuration and details that I wanted with the type of shirt and where I wanted to print stuff and how I wanted to print it. Or I would have to set up some kind of a store where I had to deal with my own sales tax and all this stuff that I don't want to do with merch. So it was just some trade-offs, but I spent some time because I want, this isn't going to be something that makes me tons of money, but I want it to be something that's a fun experience for all of us, and hopefully clothes that you are interested in and like. And so I landed on Cotton Bureau for that after a lot of trial and research and stuff. This has been going on behind the scenes for a while. So it's exciting to have the merch out there. And if you don't see it on YouTube yet, right below my videos, you should see that soon. Yeah, if it's not your thing, I don't often buy tons of logo merch from other, podcasts or YouTube channels or stuff. It's just not really as much my thing, but I know it is for a lot of people. So I wanted to have the merch. And of course I wear my own stuff. I'm self-involved like that. But if it's something you're into, go for it. If not, there'll be other ways to support the channel sometime soon, maybe be more your kind of thing. So that is merch. And I also wanted to mention really quick that we have had some curious news from Aqara recently that I just wanted to talk about. They, of course, are going to be at IFA 2024, IFA, which is a big show in Berlin happening. It sort of goes on for a while, but the media days are the end of next week. And so I think we'll probably see some announcements from various companies around IFA. It's, to the smart home industry, maybe as big as CES. It depends on how you define big and things, but man, Aqara just does not slow down. Their 2024 has been very packed with lots of new products. So I'll be interested to see what they announced. Looks like some silhouettes of some light bulbs here from these products that they're teasing. Maybe this is a new camera down at the bottom or a new sensor. Hard to tell. And then the circle as well. Maybe a new sensor. And then this looks like something to do with their smart switches in Europe, which makes sense to announce at IFA, this sort of square shape. But maybe it could be something else. So we'll see. It just, man, Aqara just does not slow down, which is great. I'm all for it. Makes our lives as content creators busy, but they certainly keep churning out the products, which keeps life interesting. And, it's sometimes people talk about how the big tech companies, Apple, Amazon, Google, like smart home isn't really like a focus for them or whatever. But I think that there's so much energy and products coming out and focus coming from other companies that are focused on the smart home. And so we'll see what comes out of IFA and then CES. And I think that as long as these big tech providers like Apple continue to make the plumbing to connect things and control Matter devices, I think, we don't necessarily need the smart home to be like a super area of focus for them, for it to be something that is actually a really cool place to set up your smart home. If they just keep churning out some stable updates to things and hopefully improve reliability and stability, which seems to be happening as, new HomePod and Apple TV software updates come out. So if that continues, I think, that's the biggest win in my view from those big companies. We'll see. But I want to say hi to some of you guys in the chat, take some questions, see what's going on. It's 4 a.m. in Singapore. Wow. Thanks for tuning in, and thanks for your video guides on HomeKit Smart Home. Well, thanks, Kenneth. Great to see you tuning in. the one detail as well with the time, this is the second to last live stream where we will be at this time. So next week on the 30th, well, I don't know. I might not do a live stream next week on the 30th with the holiday weekend. Then on September 5th, I'm going to be trying a new time, which is 8 p.m. Central, 9 Eastern, 6 p.m. Pacific. So we'll see how that works out. But a little bit different time, a little bit better for my schedule. Although if nobody's able to show up, then of course we'll find a new time. But going to give that a trial coming the first week of September. So yeah, I forgot that Labor Day is on the 2nd. So I don't think I'm going to be doing a stream next week on the 30th on Friday. So this will actually be the last Friday afternoon live stream, at least for the foreseeable future. James, you made it. Nice to see you here. Thanks for joining. Morning from Australia, Robert. Cool. Yeah, it's always fun to have people tuning in from all over the world. Fun way that the internet can connect us all despite being so far apart or so close together. Carl, still looking forward to the Aqara U300 for my utility room garage door. Yes, Aqara, last I heard, is bringing that out sometime later this year. That's what they said at CES. And they said at that point, I think fall or fourth quarter, calendar quarter of 20, which wouldn't be September. But I don't know, maybe it will come out in September, or at least be announced more at IFA. I agree. The U300 is one of the products I was really excited about leaving CES, because I think to have a lock that doesn't require a deadbolt but is a smart lock really fits a lot of use cases. So I'm going to pull up the product page so you guys can see what I'm talking about. Actually, it's just they don't even have a product page yet for the U300 on Aqara's website. It's just the CES announcements. So, and the CES press release. But yeah, should be a pretty cool new product from Aqara. I don't know if we'll see it at IFA, but if we do, that'll be exciting. Let's see. Question. Do you know if you can use the Aqara relay with fluorescent lights? Yeah, the Aqara relay is a really cool product. I actually haven't used it myself because I've been mostly into just installing smart switches. If you're not familiar, the Aqara relay basically allows you to put this device inside of a switch box in with the wiring of a non-smart switch. Could be controlling something like a fan or a light, and then it can then make that smart because the relay can also control that particular circuit. I wouldn't count on that working with fluorescent. I don't know. LED lights, I think, are sometimes a concern there because sometimes those don't always run go to like complete zero for the off state, and so then you'll have like LED lights that sort of flicker a little bit or flash depending on how the LED reacts. That's a problem with Lutron switches. Sometimes if you have certain older types of LED bulbs, especially with the original line of Lutron switches, you can have some funky behavior sometimes. I don't know if anybody knows in the chat about the Aqara relays working with fluorescent lighting. Yeah, because it is a cool idea, but I can't tell you. Renovating my first home now, probably by the end of October, and I heard the HomePod Gen 3 might be launched. Rumors? I haven't heard of anything about the HomePod Gen 3. Here's the way I'm approaching HomePods and Apple TVs and the like going forward into 2025, basically, is I don't think we're going to see any new products in that category from Apple this fall. I think if we were, we might have heard more rumors about it. But that said, the HomePod 2 did kind of come out of the blue, out of nowhere. although that was at the beginning of 2022, or 2023. I would be surprised if Apple revs the HomePod full size again for years. Maybe they'll come out with a new HomePod mini, but I think the reason they will come out with a new HomePod mini is because they can't get some of the parts for the current HomePod. For some reason, their supply chain. And sometimes with that, I almost wonder if Apple would kind of quietly update the model number of the HomePod and maybe start shipping one that has the exact same specs, exact same model, but it's just like one tiny change to the circuit board because of what they need to change. Although certainly the watch processor, which I think is the S6, S5 in the HomePod mini, that's going to get pretty old pretty soon. So they might need to move away from that. I wouldn't count on a new update to the HomePod. What I'm thinking is, technically, in the Home app, the HomePod mini and the full-size HomePod are considered Apple home hubs. But I think for the ideal Apple smart home, it's better to use Apple TVs as your smart home hubs, especially now coming with iOS 18. You'll be able to pick and basically force your Apple home to use one of your Apple TVs as your main primary HomeKit hub. The others will still act as sort of auxiliary hubs. If your Apple TV loses power, it'll go to those, things like that. But I think that the Apple TV seems to be more a place of focus for Apple, a place where they're putting new processors. And I wouldn't be surprised if we see a processor bump in the Apple TV in the next 12 months. But I have no inside information about that. But it's just because the current one is getting a little bit long in the tooth. But I just think that Apple sort of approaches the HomePods more as smart speakers. So if you're looking for smart speakers that you can use Apple's voice assistant on and have those as multi-room audio, that's a great use case for the HomePod. And in that use case, having something like a HomePod 2 or a current HomePod mini isn't really the end of the world because the specs don't really matter as much. But I think having something that really controls your smart home and maybe delivers you great video on your home TV setup, that's where something like the Apple TV really comes into play. No rumors on a HomePod this year. They say maybe next year. Yeah, I think that lines up with what I've heard too. Doubt we'll see new HomePods, new Apple TV that uses Apple Intelligence. I would love to see that. I think Apple Intelligence is so new and so much of it is focused on things that don't necessarily apply to the Apple TV right now that I don't know if we will see Apple Intelligence in the Apple TV. I could even see a world where maybe they launch an Apple TV that is somehow capable of Apple Intelligence, but it's not even turned on yet because they're too strapped for engineering resources to deliver Apple Intelligence on the existing iOS, iPad, and Mac implementations. And so then, it'll just come later, but the hardware will be capable of it. So I don't know. We'll see. And any recommendation on PoE cameras? Actually, to close out this Apple TV conversation first, Garrett's good point. One advantage of the Apple TV is you can have it hardwired, of course, which you can't do with a HomePod or HomePod mini. But this also brings me to a PSA, which is true about the hardwired attribute and the thread radio attribute, which is really annoying that Apple does this. But you need to buy the high-end Apple TV if you are wanting these features. So do not buy the lower-end Apple TV if you are wanting to get smart home control. Now, technically, the lower-end Apple TV does work as a smart home hub, so it's not like it's not going to work. And it maybe as a secondary Apple TV could work out. But if you're here on the buy page for the Apple TV, Wi-Fi plus Ethernet is $150 versus $130. And sometimes you can find these discounted at this point and through other retailers. But man, by the way, I think I mentioned this last week. I left one of our Siri remotes at the vacation rental we were staying at. To replace one of these from Apple is $60. Ouch. Not fun. But we have it now. It's here, and it works just the same as the other one, but that is the Apple TV. So going over to PoE cameras, it's a good question from some other good conversation going on in the chat too. Any recommendations for PoE cameras? A lot of people have had success with Rail-Link. I tend to really like Ubiquiti. I think they have nice software to go along with their cameras. And you can use Ubiquiti even if you're not using their networking. So I will share this again. They have a growing number of types of cameras. For outdoor PoE, I like the Bullet series. I have a G4 Bullet. Works really well. The G5 Bullet has some people argue that it's not as good a parts or things like that. They made it so they could mass produce it more easily, but I've also heard other people saying it holds up fine. 2K resolution is pretty good. Of course, you could spring for the G5 Pro and get the 4K. I just really like the video quality of the recordings that I get off Ubiquiti cameras. And I love but you pay for it. This is just for the camera, $380 for the Pro. That's the 4K video one. The Bullet, like I have, and I paid with my own money, is $130 for the G5. I have the G4 Bullet that I don't think they sell anymore. And so I just think that the interface to access the recordings as well as the cameras themselves, it's a nice, slick system altogether with Ubiquiti, and I like using their Wi-Fi products as well. But that would be my recommendation. You can also run it through Apple Home with Scripted. I don't care to do that. I just use their app. I also find their notifications very fast. The one thing that I don't like about the event detection on the G4, and I should try the G5 to see how it works, but the event detection is kind of coarse in terms of it can tell you if there's a person or a vehicle or things like that. But if you have it in a busy area, you can be getting a lot of notifications and then it can almost overwhelm you. But that's a problem with a lot of smart home cameras at this point. That's something I'd love to see. Maybe even Apple Intelligence improve. It's just the ability to surface the right camera notifications at the right time. Because you want to know about important or bad things. But if cameras could have a list of known people, and some cameras have features kind of like this, but if you could say, these are known faces. If you see these, don't alert me. But if you see anybody who's not one of these known faces, then alert me. That would be really nice. That's, I think, one of the downsides of outdoor cameras in general, and Ubiquiti included. But they are able to recognize people in cars and all kinds of other stuff. But that is Ubiquiti. So let's go back to the chat. Oh, yes, the Apple TV paired with the HomePod would be awesome. Using Apple TV as HomeKit base. But yeah, thanks for sharing the details. Yeah, sometimes, Kenneth, I try and answer the questions applying to more than just the one person asking, but it is something that could be nice to have the HomePods with the Apple TV. It's a very minimal setup. Maybe not the absolute best cinema sound, but very good option. Oh boy. Yeah, so when the one Apple TV and the wireless have to reboot if the one Apple TV takes over. Yeah, having wired networking through your house to your hubs is better. Topo does have, I really like Topo's HomeKit secure video cameras for inside. I haven't checked out their new doorbell. I've seen some reviews of it, but there's some more endorsements for Ubiquiti. Yeah, Garrett, you bring up a good point. The ColorX night vision is very, very good. So if night vision, some of Ubiquity's newer cameras have some more color night vision, especially I think it's the AI Pro. Cody from Mac Telecom on YouTube had some reviews of that. But is it the AI Pro? There's one of those. One of their newer cameras has a bunch of color performance. However, I do think it's an edge that Railink has. So if night vision is very important to you, ColorX from Railink probably beats out Ubiquity in certain cases there. Although I think, Ubiquity has good image quality at night, even if it's not necessarily in color, depending on the model you get. Do you have any information on the current tvOS betas? The latest public beta was rough, and the current public beta seems to have problems with Matter. Yes, I have the developer betas on an Apple TV that's actually hooked up to my monitor here, although not in a way, unfortunately, right now that I can show it on the stream. I might be configuring some things to do that in the future. But it's been this Apple TV sitting on my desk that can run through my computer monitor because I actually moved my Apple Studio display to the co-working space where I tend to work more on app development. And then here I have a different monitor. This Apple TV seems to be much more stable after the latest beta update. I haven't had any Matter issues since I've installed the latest developer beta. So keep that in mind. I imagine that will be coming to the public beta because yes, some of the betas this summer with Apple TV when it's controlling your smart home are rough. It does unlock some features. I have some various devices that are newer versions of Matter in certain ways that then need that new Apple TV betas to work. So it's a little bit of a tricky thing to deal with because I want to try some of the new stuff, but then I get unreliable stuff in my smart home because the betas, it's the life I think a lot of us live of trying to live on the edge, getting the new stuff. But yeah, stay tuned for an update there because I think the new public betas will be better. Good. That's good to hear, Brian, that you're not having any problems with the tvOS beta. Yeah, I've had on again, particularly LifeX lights with Matter and Topo switches. It could, that's a good point, Johnny, that it could be LifeX implementation of Matter. I've been using any of their lights in a while, so I can't say for sure how they are working or not working for me, but I have had issues with other products being unreliable with the developer betas this summer. So it's something I think at least some people are experiencing. All right. So I'm trying to figure out, Kenneth, what you're looking to do. Okay, here comes another question. Do you run automation scenes on the native apps or run everything in HomeKit instead? No, that makes sense, Kenneth. So basically, to kind of try and summarize and put in my own words, you have Yeelights, you have Aqara sensors, and some door sensors and things that then you want to be able to trigger various scenes in your smart home. And do I use Apple Home? Do I use maybe Aqara's app, Yeelight's app in your case, or something like Home Assistant? My view generally is I try and put as much as possible in Apple Home. And right now, 100% of my automations that I'm running in my home are all in Apple Home. I've played with other things like Homey and Home Assistant. I keep trying to find that like way to talk about Home Assistant on my channel, but I just haven't yet. I probably will do that more in the future at some point. My use of Home Assistant is basically like an alternative to HomeBridge, if you know what HomeBridge is. But that's a aside for another day. The thing with automations is I just like having them all in one place and having them be in a place where you can easily see all the details of how the automation works. And I like how it's almost a feature, how little the Home app actually lets you do, or even HomeKit apps more broadly, because then you can't get automations that are too complicated for you to remember and debug. I don't like having to think very hard about my automations if I don't have to. I mean, like I will, but I just find oftentimes there's a better way to solve the problem that's simpler and has less conditions and get you like 80%, the 80-20 solution of like 80% as good as you need it for 20% of the effort. And that's usually the Apple Home solution. And that's why I like to just spend my effort up front trying to fit what I want into Apple Home automations rather than saying, well, if I get these 3 different motion sensors and use timers to detect if the motion sensor hadn't seen motion for 30 minutes, then turn these lights off, but only if it's after sunset. And like that gets complicated to figure out. Then why are my lights turning on all of a sudden at this point or whatever? And, Aqara does have some nice ways you can integrate some of their sensors, particularly around the time automations too. So if you're doing automations in the Aqara app and feeling like you're struggling to get automations where you want to have something like that, where a sensor detects for 30 minutes, or like you can use their vibration sensors as tilt sensors and all kinds of things that maybe don't always come over to Apple Home or other ecosystems. So you can try that. I also think that there's a lot to be gained from third-party HomeKit apps. There are some out there, like Controller for HomeKit is one of the bigger ones. There's Home Plus 5, I think it is. It's another good one. Both of those are for pay apps, which I think gives some good value for money for, allowing you to do some complex automations that Apple enables you inside of Apple HomeKit, but doesn't necessarily expose in Apple Home. The other thing I made a video on a while back that you can do with Apple Home that makes for more complex automations are converting automations to shortcuts, which is an Apple Home specific feature. You can't do that in the third-party apps, but it can be a nice way to look through, doing things where maybe you're alternating based on a random number. I've done that with some of my kids' lights where they can just continually hit a button, and based on a random number from something I set up in shortcuts in Apple Home, it'll cycle through different colors. They touch it. Oh, now it's red. Oh, now it's blue or green or whatever. So that can be potentially useful. Also just a fun trick, but there are other things you can do. You can pull in weather information. You can even like connect to local things on your network as well via those shortcuts that run in Apple Home. And those are special shortcuts that run in Apple Home. They're not things that run on your iPhone. So you have way less access to things like your apps and your data and all the shortcuts actions you might use on your phone, which is a whole other category of potential ways to do home automation. But those are some things to think about there as far as what you could potentially do with home automations in Apple. And that's generally how I tend to approach it. Happy Friday, Edgar. Nice to see you here from Edgar's Home Tech. Getting rid of Ring doorbells and upgrading to Rail-Link. Cool. All the best with that, Robert. Hope it goes well. Let's see. Closing on a new home. Congratulations. It comes with a Ring Video doorbell, as did mine. I'm committed to using a HomeKit setup. Is there any way to make Ring play well with the rest of my system? That is an unfortunate but very good question, Paul, because there are a lot of folks out there who use Ring for various reasons. Comes with the home. There are also some kind of social community reasons why you might want to use Ring because of some of their systems that sort of work with the neighborhood and things. I don't think Ring runs in scripted, which would be I'm going to pull this up if I can. But yeah, I think, short answer I would say is no, unfortunately. So you're probably going to have to at some point look at other doorbells or things for Ring. It's also a bummer that I really don't like how Ring started to charge a subscription for every type of plan they use. Now, I get it that their software has ongoing support costs, right? So Ring spending money to support your home in some indirect way, even if you're not paying for professional monitoring or cloud recording. So, but if you have existing hardware from your home, it probably will be opted into the forever free plan with Ring. Depends on what you want to sign up for there. My advice would be just like use Ring for Ring, try it. It came with the home, see how it works, see what you think of it, but just use it in their own app and maybe with some of the Amazon stuff. But consider, as you might prefer Apple Home, maybe you like using Apple Home products, looking at other doorbell options down the road. You probably have, moving into a new home, 1,000,001 projects to think about of what do you want to fix or improve or things like that over time. So I would just go with that because I don't think, maybe someone can correct me if I'm wrong in the chat, but I don't think Ring works unscripted. I think Ring has become pretty locked down. But what I'm talking about, this comes up like it's starting to be perennial topics on these live streams, including scripted. So this is scripted.app, and you can use it to quote unquote stream anything to anything. And it could be an option that you can consider, but I don't think they have any plugins for Ring. So, here, just put another chat message up there. Sorry, Brian. Oh, Ring does work with scripted. Oh, it's how you got into HomeKit. Well, nice, Robert. Well, that's good to know. So I would say if you feel like running scripted on a local device on your network, it might be something to consider. Now, I will say that for the cost of a smart home doorbell, you could quickly spend that in the time, or in certainly the money for whatever hardware you may or may not have already to run scripted. If you don't have something like a Synology or a spare Mac Mini to sit on your network or something else, or a more recent Raspberry Pi, if you don't have one of those to run on your network, you can quickly spend the cost of a new smart home doorbell just to get scripted running with Ring. So unless you're trying to get a whole network of cameras from Ring running on your system, it's just trying to figure out what's worth the time versus the money. Can be a fun project if you just want something for fun. So just some elements to consider as you're trying to figure out, like, what do you want to do, Paul, with your time and your money. I would go with just stick with Ring, use it as is, and then when you have the chance, get a new doorbell that properly supports things like Apple Home or another system. There's the Ecobee doorbell, which I still use, which then works with the Ecobee system, but then just shows a live view in Apple Home. And then there are the HomeKit secure video doorbells like the Belkin Wemo and the Logitech Circle View that are other ones to consider, although those have had their share of controversy and issues over the years. I would probably lean towards the Belkin Wemo. Another one to look at is the Aqara doorbell, the G4 doorbell from Aqara. That also has some issues with image quality, but it's overall a very reliable option for a HomeKit secure video doorbell. So just some thoughts there. And thank you for the chat chiming in about scripted, Robert. And you already discussed the Aqara teaser. Yes, we did discuss the Aqara teaser, hinting at a potential G5 outdoor camera. I don't know if I would call this a G5 outdoor camera, but maybe. here, I'll show what I think Edgar's talking about here. Like, I don't look at that and think there's a outdoor camera there, because I don't think that kind of a mount would exist for an outdoor camera. I think because that would probably rust or somehow lose its flexibility over time. I think that would be an indoor camera mount or an indoor sensor mount, but we'll see. Definitely an exciting area to stay tuned on. And let's see here. Yeah, it's another point that Ubiquiti does also have doorbells. So if you're looking for going the Ubiquiti route, they have doorbells. Well, their doorbells have a cool, like, a little e-ink display you can put messages on and stuff. But lots of options out there. Although those then you need scripted to put in there. So I just put into Apple Home. Oh, yeah, dipping into Home Assistant can be a deep rabbit hole. Yes. Lots of fun ways to explore, but also challenges. I'm kind of hoping Home Assistant over time, they've talked about this. Like, the founder of Home Assistant has talked about this. He had an interview on Smart Home Solver's channel a while back. I think they're trying to make it more user-friendly. Like, for example, with my Home Assistant Green that I have here at home, I've played with previous versions of Home Assistant as well, but the Home Assistant Green is kind of like Hoobs, if you're familiar with that from Homebridge. It's kind of that same idea, but for Home Assistant. And I have managed that box entirely from my smart home using the Home Assistant app. I haven't used any command line, any web views, and I certainly could, but it was just kind of an experiment I've been wanting to see of, like, how much could this be something that level of user-friendly, right? Because if you have a smart home, chances are you know how to install apps on your phone and access the stuff on your network with your phone. So, and credit to Home Assistant, you can do a lot in that app. It's not very intuitive and it's not a very clean UI, but it can work for a lot of stuff. So, and I haven't gotten into anything where I've hit a wall there, but I'm sure there are walls that I just haven't needed to discover yet about what I can and can't do with the mobile app versus the web UI or something else. So I have a car door lock. How do I share access with my family members to use their phones and Apple Watches to unlock the door? Good question, Jimmy. So right now in iOS 17, you need to add those people to your Apple Home, which you can do under Home Settings in the Home app, and you can send them an invite and they can accept and then be part of your Apple Home. And you can, in the Home app, control, and also other HomeKit apps, control more than one Apple Home. So you can, let's say, invite relatives who might have their own Apple Home, but then they frequently come to yours. So then you can have them there to be able to control yours as well. In iOS 18, there's some new guest features coming, which will allow you to give people access to just a part of your Apple Home, like a smart lock. Now, the benefit of adding people in Apple Home like that is that you can add people so that they can use, like you're saying, Apple Watches, iPhones, just tapping them on the door lock to unlock the door. So that's a really nice feature. And I think worth adding people to your Apple Home that you feel comfortable doing so with. And if not, you can wait for the guest features coming. I think the guest features will support Apple HomeKey. I haven't tested that or tried that, but that's something that'll be interesting to see how that all works out. One other cool thing you can do with a car lock specifically, and other locks have similar kinds of products, is getting these little, it's $10 in the US, and it works with the U100 and the U50 and the U200, presumably the U300 when it comes out, are these, Here, I'll pull up an image of what I'm talking about. These little NFC tags. So these are pretty cool little tags that are like about this big, and you can just wave them in front of your door and it unlocks. So you get a lot of the benefits of Apple HomeKey. Now, it's not the convenience of having it on your smartphone, but just something to consider that like you can have those pulled up, and you know you can have those on their key ring, and then they can just get in that way. So another thing to consider for guests as well that might not want to use a passcode, PIN code on the lock. Oh yeah, that's another point, Garance. The I think it's the G4 doorbell from Ubiquiti does have one of those cool features that's becoming more common on doorbells, where you have a dual camera system that then looks at the down below the doorbell at the ground where people might leave packages, and then also out in front of you. And it can also run on power over Ethernet, which could be nice if you don't have existing power for a doorbell, but can also be kind of tricky to deal with if you, I think, do they have, oh yeah, they do have a Wi-Fi version that then just like attaches to standard doorbell wires. Good. Okay, cool. Yeah. I should show you guys what I'm looking at here. This is the product page for the Ubiquiti doorbell, and they have the PoE version in black and white, PoE being power over Ethernet, and then the Wi-Fi version, and that connects via standard doorbell wires. One thing as a smart home owner that's good to keep in mind where it is if you haven't already, maybe some of you I know are moving into new homes and stuff, but just look at the wiring in your home and what you can see from just being around the house and maybe looking in the basement or crawl space or whatever, finding out where your doorbell transformer is, because there's a transformer probably somewhere in your home that then powers the doorbell if you have a powered doorbell in the front. And then you can look at what's engraved on the transformer, other things, and try and figure out what is the actual value of like how many volts, you know, how much power the doorbell gets, because that's another thing that can dictate what doorbells you're able to have or not. Certain ones have certain transformer power requirements of more or less power. And that can also be something that influences maybe Wi-Fi signal issues you might have, where the doorbell is not getting enough power, or maybe more power would give it more strength to its signal. And there are ways you can swap out your doorbell transformer, provided, you know, the circuit can handle a little bit of increased load or whatever. So it's something to consider. I have not done that myself, but it is something that's possible to think about. So just details to keep in mind. If you don't know where your doorbell transformer is, look around your home. Mine is actually above our washer and dryer in our laundry room. So it's sort of like below where the front door is. And so the wires come in through the wall there, and then they go to that transformer and then out to the circuit breaker. So that was something a while back. I spent an evening trying to figure out where is this thing. So no, it's not common to have Ethernet cables at the door of Vlogfield. I think Ubiquiti's idea behind that is just because they make so many PoE cameras already that there's probably straightforward for them to add to use that kind of technology. Also, another big market for them are small businesses, where maybe you have this doorbell installed in a place that's less conventional for a home doorbell, right? Like some industrial entrance to a building. And maybe there, if you work with an IT company that runs your cables for you or whatever, you could easily have one that sort of goes through the wall and right out to the side by the entrance. So I think it's a little bit of those different factors. And you can sort of use maybe the existing conduit, existing holes for doorbell wiring and then go ahead and connect your own PoE that way, just using that to run your own cable through there. So something to consider, although I wouldn't recommend it because unless you're in like one of those commercial situations, because very few other doorbells take advantage of that technology. So if you or the future owner wants to put a different doorbell on the front door, PoE might be kind of limiting, whereas just having standard traditional doorbell wiring hooked up to a transformer is going to give you more options. And so, yeah, that's my thought there. All right. So we are coming up on almost an hour, going 50 minutes. It's been great talking to you guys, and I think we've had a fun time this afternoon. Don't forget, if you are interested in it, I got my merch over here on Cotton Bureau and coming soon to YouTube as well, right below the videos. So check out that if it's something you're into. For depending on the type of t-shirt you are ordering, it can be not all that expensive, $25, $30. The sweatshirts get up into $40 or close to $50, depending on the configuration you order. But I'm sorry that they don't have as great of options for shipping outside the US, but just long story short, the vendor that I ended up with, I wanted to make good t-shirts most importantly, and other vendors do make good t-shirts. It's just finding the one that fit what I wanted to do. So that's how I landed at Cotton Bureau. All right. So thank you guys so much for tuning in. I should actually have some videos finally coming out. I know I missed last weekend, but some stuff coming out this weekend. So stay tuned to the channel. Thanks again so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. And Thursday night, September 5th will be the next live stream. Have a good one. Bye.